I gasped, my lungs burning as I sat up in bed. My hands flew to my chest, clutching the silk fabric of my nightgown. My heart was racing thump, 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 a frantic rhythm that felt too loud in the silent room. I was dead. I know I was. The memory was vivid. The sterile smell of the hospital. The steady beep of the monitor turning into a flat, high-pitched tone. The coldness creeping up my legs. And the empty chair beside my bed where Julian should have been. I blinked, looking around. The gray curtains were drawn, filtering the morning light. The wedding photo on the vanity table stared back at me. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand. The date on the screen glared at me. 3 months ago. I dropped the phone on the sheets. My hands were trembling. I wasn't dead. I was back. I was back in this cold house, in this cold marriage, exactly 3 months before my heart would fail for the last time. The doorknob turned. I stiffened. Julian walked in. He looked disheveled, his tie loosened and his shirt unbuttoned at the collar. The smell hit me instantly, sweet, cloying perfume. Her perfume, Serafina. He stopped when he saw me sitting up. He didn't smile. He didn't ask how I slept. "You're awake," he said, his voice flat. "I thought you'd sleep until noon." I stared at him. In my past life, I would have been out of bed by now. I would have been screaming. I would have pointed a shaking finger at the bright red smudge of lipstick on his white collar. "Elara?" he snapped, stepping closer. "Why are you staring at me like that?" I took a slow breath. "Like what? Like you're trying to read my mind." "Stop it, it's creepy." He walked past the bed, tossing his jacket onto the chair. "I was with Marcus. We had a late meeting." The lie was so lazy it was almost insulting. "Okay," I whispered. He paused, his hand freezing on his belt buckle. He turned slowly to face me, a frown creasing his forehead. "Okay?" "Yes, okay." "You aren't going to ask what we were discussing?" He asked, suspicion narrowing his eyes. "You aren't going to demand to see my call logs?" "No, Julian, why not?" He sounded almost offended. "Usually by this time in the morning, you're already crying about how much I work." I looked at his collar again. That red stain, it used to tear me apart. Now it just looked like a stain. "I'm tired, Julian," I said, swinging my legs over the edge of the bed. My body felt heavy, the sickness already rooting itself deep in my chest. "You're always tired," he scoffed. "It's your excuse for everything. You stay in this house, do nothing, and complain about being tired." I stood up, holding onto the bedpost for balance. "You're right, I do nothing. So you shouldn't worry about what I think anymore. What is that supposed to mean?" He stepped into my path, looming over me. "Are you planning one of your silent treatments?" "Because I don't have time for your childish games today, Elara." I looked up into his eyes. They were blue, icy, and completely void of love. I used to beg for a spark of warmth in them. I used to humiliate myself just to make him look at me. "No games," I said softly. "I'm just going to wash up." "You're acting strange," she muttered, watching me closely. "Did you take your medicine?" "I don't need medicine for this," I said, walking past him toward the bathroom. "For what?" He called out after me. I stopped at the bathroom door, my hand on the frame. I didn't look back. "For clarity," I said. I closed the door and locked it. I leaned against the cold wood and slid down to the floor. I didn't cry. I didn't feel the urge to scream. I felt a strange, hollow peace. He didn't want me. He loved someone else. And in 3 months, I would be gone. Fine, I thought, closing my eyes. If I have to die, I will do it quietly. I won't spend my last days fighting for a man who is already gone. I stood up and looked in the mirror. My reflection was pale, but my eyes were dry. "Goodbye, Julian," I whispered to the empty room. I turned on the faucet, letting the water wash away the past. Dr. Aris sighed, taking off his glasses and rubbing the bridge of his nose. The silence in the office was heavy, broken only by the ticking clock on the wall. "I wish I had better news, Elara," he said, his voice low. "Just tell me, doctor," I said, sitting straight in the chair. "How long?" He hesitated, looking at the file in his hands. "With the rate of degeneration, 3 months. Maybe less if you don't reduce your stress levels immediately. 3 months. It was the exact same sentence I had heard in my last life. The difference was, last time I had sobbed, begging him to save me so I wouldn't leave Julian alone. This time I didn't even blink. "Is there a treatment?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Palliative care," he said softly. "We can manage the pain." But the heart failure is irreversible. It's rare, genetic, and aggressive. I strongly suggest we bring Julian in to discuss the next steps. No, I interrupted sharply. Dr. Reese frowned, leaning forward. Elara, you cannot go through this alone. He is your husband. He has a right to know. He lost that right a long time ago, I said, my voice steady. He is my roommate, doctor. Nothing more. I stood up, smoothing the wrinkles in my skirt. If you tell him, I will refuse all care. Do you understand? I want patient confidentiality strictly enforced. I don't want his pity, and I certainly don't want his fake concern. Dr. Reese looked at me for a long time, seeing a hardness in my eyes that wasn't there before. As you wish, he finally whispered. But please think about it. I have, I said, picking up my purse. I've thought about nothing else. The house was silent when I entered, except for the soft swish-swish of a duster. Martha was in the hallway, polishing the grand staircase banister. She jumped when she saw me, nearly dropping her cloth. Madam, I didn't hear the car, she stammered, clutching the duster like a shield. I'll have tea ready in 5 minutes. No tea, Martha, I said, walking over to her. She looked terrified. Julian often yelled at the staff for minor mistakes, and I usually ignored them, too wrapped up in my own misery to notice anyone else. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a silver brooch set with small pearls. It wasn't bought with Julian's money. It was an heirloom from my grandmother. Take this, I said, pressing it into her hand. Martha stared at the box, her eyes widening in shock. Madam, is this a mistake? No mistake. I remember you saying your daughter needed braces last month. Sell this. It should cover the cost. I can't, she gasped, her hands trembling. Mr. Julian says we aren't to accept gifts. He'll be furious. Mr. Julian isn't here, I said firmly. And he doesn't own me or this brooch. Martha looked at me, tears sudden and bright in her eyes. Thank you, madam. You look different today. I feel different, I admitted, a sad smile touching my lips. Keep it hidden, Martha. I walked past her and climbed the stairs to the master bedroom. It felt like walking into a museum exhibit. Everything was perfectly placed, cold, and impersonal. I went to the closet and pulled a small, nondescript suitcase from the back. I didn't want the designer clothes Julian bought me so I would look good on his arm at parties. I wanted my things. I packed my old journals. The sketchbook I hadn't touched in 2 years. My comfortable sweaters that Julian hated because they weren't elegant enough. I looked at the vanity table. My expensive perfumes, the diamond earrings Julian gave me as apology gifts every time he hurt me. I left them all right where they were. I don't need this luggage, I whispered to myself. I zipped the suitcase and shoved it deep under the bed. I wasn't leaving today, but I was ready. For the first time in years, this house didn't feel like a cage. It felt like a departure lounge, and my flight was boarding soon. Madam, there is a young woman at the gate, Martha whispered, standing nervously in the doorway of the living room. She says she needs to return something to Mr. Julian personally. I looked up from my book. I knew exactly who it was. I knew exactly what she was holding. Let her in, Martha, I said calmly. But madam, Martha hesitated, wringing her hands. It's fine, show her to the drawing room. I stood up and smoothed my dress. In my past life, I had stormed to the door, snatched the jacket from her hands, and screamed until my throat bled. I had given Julian exactly the show he needed to paint me as the villain, not this time. I walked into the drawing room just as Serafina stepped in. She looked fragile, holding Julian's gray suit jacket against her chest like a shield. Her eyes widened when she saw me. She was expecting a monster, not a host. Mrs. Vance, she said, her voice trembling with fake timidity. I didn't know you were home. I just wanted to drop this off. Julian left it at the office. It was a Saturday. Julian hadn't been to the office in 2 days. Thank you, Serafina, I said, gesturing to the sofa. Please, sit down. Martha is bringing tea. Serafina froze. Tea? Yes, unless you're in a rush? No, I can stay for a moment, she stammered, sitting on the edge of the velvet cushion. She placed the jacket on the armrest between us. It smelled heavily of her perfume. She wanted me to smell it. She wanted me to react. That's a lovely dress, I said, pouring 2 cups as Martha set the tray down. Is it new? Serafina touched the collar of her peach dress, looking thoroughly confused. Yes, Julian, I bought it last week. It suits you, I said, handing her a cup. You have a very youthful complexion. It's charming. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. She took the tea, her hand shaking just a little. You aren't upset? She asked, her voice dropping to a whisper. Why would I be upset about a jacket? I asked, taking a sip. Julian is very forgetful. He was with me until late last night, she blurted out, her eyes searching mine for a crack. He was very stressed about his marriage. He needed someone to talk to. I smiled. It was a cold, polite smile. I'm glad he has you to listen then. He can be quite exhausting when he complains. The front door slammed open. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hall. Elara. Julian's voice boomed. He sounded panicked. Elara, don't. He burst into the drawing room, his face pale and sweating. He had clearly raced home the moment Serafina texted him that she was here. He expected screaming. He expected broken glass. Instead, he found us sitting in the afternoon sun. He stopped dead in his tracks, gripping the doorframe. What is happening? Hello, Julian, I said without looking up. Serafina was kind enough to return your jacket. He looked at the jacket, then at Serafina, and finally at me. Terror flashed in his eyes. He didn't understand. My calmness frightened him more than my rage ever did. Elara, I can explain, he started, stepping into the room. She just came by too. She already told me, I interrupted. Sit down, the tea is still hot. You aren't angry? He asked, breathless. The jacket is back. Why would I be angry? I placed my cup down on the saucer with a soft clink. Serafina looked at Julian, her lip trembling. I told her you were stressed, Julian. She understands. Julian looked at me as if I were a stranger. You understand? Completely, I said, standing up. Actually, I have a headache. I think I'll go rest upstairs. You're leaving? Julian asked, his voice rising in disbelief. Just like that? Yes, you two have so much to discuss, I said, walking toward the door. Take your time. I won't disturb you. I brushed past him. I felt his gaze burning into my back. He wasn't looking at Serafina. He was watching me walk away, and for the first time, he realized I wasn't looking back. Elara! He called out, sounding almost desperate. I didn't stop. I climbed the stairs, leaving them alone in the silence I had created. The cave was quiet, smelling of roasted beans and rain. I sat in the corner booth, my hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea I had no intention of drinking. Across from me, Mr. Vance adjusted his glasses, looking uncomfortable. He had been Julian's family lawyer for decades, but today he was meeting me in secret. Mrs. Vance, he started, clearing his throat. You sounded very urgent on the phone. Is everything all right? Please call me Elara, I said, reaching into my tote bag. I pulled out a thick manila envelope and slid it across the wooden table. And no, everything is not all right. But it will be soon. He hesitated, his fingers hovering over the envelope. What is this? Open it? He slid the papers out. The rustle of the pages seemed loud in the empty cafe. I watched his eyes scan the bold text at the top. His eyebrows shot up. A petition for divorce? He looked at me stunned. And it's uncontested? You've waived your right to alimony. Keep reading, I said softly. He flipped to the next document, your last will and testament. He stopped, looking up at me with genuine confusion. Elara, you are 26 years old. Why are you drafting a will? And why does this say you are leaving your entire estate to Julian? Because I don't want anything from him, I answered, leaning forward. But this is madness, Mr. Vance whispered, lowering his voice. If you divorce him, you are entitled to half his fortune. The house, the investments, you could walk away a very wealthy woman. Why leave him everything? Why give him the satisfaction? It isn't satisfaction, Mr. Vance. It's an insult. He blinked. I don't understand. If I take his money, he will think I used him. He will think our marriage was a transaction. He will tell himself that I was just another greedy woman. I took a breath, feeling the sharpness in my chest. But if I leave with nothing, absolutely nothing, then he has to face the truth. He has to live with the fact that I didn't want his money. I just wanted to be his wife. And he failed at that. Mr. Vance stared at me. The realization slowly dawned on his face. You want to haunt him with generosity. I want to haunt him with his own loss, I corrected. He thinks money can fix everything. When he sees that his money is useless to me, it will break him. He looked back down at the will, his expression softening into pity. And the health clause? You've marked do not resuscitate. I have my reasons. Does Julian know? No, and he won't. I tapped the table with my finger. That brings me to my instructions. These documents are not to be filed today. Then when? I am going away soon. When I do, or if you hear news that I have passed, then you deliver these to him not a moment sooner. Elara, he said, his voice trembling slightly. You sound like you are saying goodbye. I am tidying up my life, Mr. Vance. I don't want to leave a mess behind. He took a long sip of his coffee, looking troubled. I have served the Vance family for 30 years. I have seen Julian do many foolish things. But losing you, that might be the mistake that destroys him. That is his burden to carry, I said, standing up. Not mine. Are you sure about this? He asked, holding the envelope as if it were heavy. Once I take this, there is no turning back, I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I had felt in days. It felt light. I have never been more sure of anything. Take it. Keep it safe. I will, he promised. Thank you. I walked out of the cafe and into the gray afternoon. The wind was cold, but for the first time in my second life, I didn't shiver. I felt free. The chains were cut. Now I just had to wait for the end. The crystal chandelier above the dining table cast a harsh, glittering light on the scene. It was a perfect setting for execution, which was exactly what Lady Beatrice had planned. I sat at my usual spot, the chair feeling harder than I remembered. Across from me, Serafina sat next to Julian, her knee brushing against his under the table. I saw the fabric of the tablecloth move. I didn't care. I focused on cutting my steak into precise, bite-sized squares. This roast is exquisite, Lady Beatrice, Serafina chirped, wiping the corner of her mouth with a linen napkin. You have such impeccable taste. Julian is so lucky to have a mother who knows how to run a household. Lady Beatrice beamed, her eyes crinkling at the corners. She didn't look at me. She never looked at me if she could help it. Thank you, my dear, she said, her voice dripping with sugar. It takes a certain vitality to manage an estate like this. Energy, strength, qualities that are lacking in some. She took a sip of her wine, her eyes finally flicking to me over the rim of the glass. The insult landed in the center of the table. Elara, Julian muttered, leaning toward me. Don't listen to her. I'm listening, I said calmly, spearing a piece of potato. The roast is dry, by the way. Julian choked on his water. Seraphine's eyes widened. Lady Beatrice stiffened, setting her glass down with a sharp clack. Excuse me? Lady Beatrice asked, her voice dropping an octave. I said I'm listening, I repeated, looking her dead in the eye. Please continue. You were talking about vitality. Beatrice's face reddened. She wasn't used to me speaking back. In the past, I would have been staring at my lap, holding back tears. Well, she huffed, adjusting her pearl necklace. Since you are listening, let's speak plainly. I was telling Serafina how tragic it is that the Vance bloodline is stalling. Julian is 30. He needs an heir. He needs a wife who can actually provide one. The room went silent. The air was sucked out of the space. This was her favorite weapon, my infertility. The thing that had made me feel like a broken woman for years. Serafina looked down, feigning embarrassment. Oh, Lady Beatrice, perhaps we shouldn't discuss such private matters. Nonsense, Beatrice snapped. It's a business matter. A family matter. Julian is stuck with a barren wife, and the whole city knows it. I stopped chewing. I swallowed slowly. I placed my knife and fork down on the plate. You are absolutely right, I said. Julian froze. Elara? I turned my head to face his mother. My expression was pleasant, almost bored. A man of Julian's status deserves a legacy. It is selfish of me to keep him tethered to a dead end. He should find someone fertile, someone young, like Serafina. I gestured to the woman across from me. She looked horrified, her mask slipping. She didn't want the spotlight like this. Clutter. Julian's fork hit his plate, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Stop it, Julian hissed, staring at me. He was searching my face, looking for the sarcasm, the anger, the hurt. He found nothing. Mother, that is enough. I am simply agreeing with her, Julian, I said, picking up my wine glass. Why are you upset? You've thought the same thing 1,000 times. I have not. Julian shouted, slamming his hand on the table. The silverware jumped. Mother, apologize to her. Lady Beatrice looked as shocked as I felt in my previous life. Apologize? Julian, look at her. She doesn't even care. She is my wife, Julian roared, his face flushing red. And you will treat her with respect in my house. I took a sip of wine. It was a bold red bitter on the tongue. It's okay, Julian, I said, setting the glass down. She doesn't need to apologize for telling the truth. Elara, please, Julian begged, his voice cracking. He reached for my hand. I pulled it away before he could touch me. I'm full. Thank you for the dinner, Lady Beatrice. It was illuminating. I stood up, the chair scraping against the floor. Sit down, Elara, Julian commanded, though it sounded more like a plea. No, I said softly. I think I'll go pack. I wouldn't want to overstay my welcome. I walked out of the dining room, leaving them sitting in the wreckage of their own cruelty. I heard Julian shouting at his mother as I walked down the hall, but the sound was distant, like a radio playing in another room. It wasn't my noise anymore. The city library was a cathedral of silence. It was the only place in the city where the name Vance didn't grant me special treatment or disgusted sneers. It just granted me quiet. I stood in the fiction aisle, staring up at the top shelf. My fingers twitched at my side. I wanted the copy of The Solitary Bird, a book I had read a dozen times in my first life. It was just out of reach. I reached up, my arm trembling. The exhaustion hit me like a wave, and my vision blurred for a second. I swayed. Careful, a deep voice said behind me. A hand steadied my elbow, gentle, not grabbing. A long arm reached up and plucked the book from the shelf effortlessly. I turned around. Silas Thorne stood there. He was tall, wearing a charcoal coat that looked more expensive than Julian's entire car collection. His eyes were dark, intelligent, and currently scanning my face with unsettling precision. Here, he said, handing me the book. Thank you, I whispered, taking it. My hand shook as I gripped the cover. I tried to hide it, but he noticed. You're Silas Thorne, I said, leaning back against the shelf for support. My husband hates you. Your husband hates anyone who is better at business than he is, Silas replied smoothly. A faint smirk touched his lips, but it vanished as he looked at my hand again. You're trembling, Elara. I skipped lunch. No, he said, stepping closer. He wasn't invading my space. He was inspecting me. I recognized that pallor. The blue tint under the fingernails. My sister had it before she passed. I froze. The library air suddenly felt very cold. Mr. Thorne, you are overstepping. Am I? He lowered his voice. You aren't just sick, are you? You are dying. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. I looked at him, defenseless. I should have denied it. I should have walked away. But the secret was so heavy and I was so tired of carrying it alone. Don't tell him, I said. My voice was barely audible. Silas's expression shifted. The arrogance vanished, replaced by a solemn respect. Why hide it? Because he doesn't deserve to know, I said, clutching the book to my chest. He doesn't get to grieve me. Silas studied me for a long moment. That is the cruelest thing I have ever heard. I admire it. Elara. The shout shattered the peace. I flinched. Julian was storming across the street toward the glass entrance, his face stood in rage. He must have seen us through the window. He pushed through the library doors, ignoring the librarian's hush. Get away from her. Julian barked, marching up to us. He grabbed my arm, yanking me to his side. What do you think you're doing with my wife, Thorne? Silas didn't flinch. He put his hands in his pockets, looking at Julian with utter boredom. We were discussing literature, Julian, something you wouldn't understand. Don't play games with me, Julian spat, tightening his grip on my arm. It hurt. I saw you leaning in. Were you harassing her? He helped me get a book, I said, trying to pull my arm free. Julian, let go. You're hurting me. I'm protecting you. Julian shouted, looking down at me. Do you know who this snake is? He's trying to ruin me. And here you are, flirting with him in public. Flirting? I let out a dry, incredulous laugh. Is that what you think this is? I know what I saw. Julian turned back to Silas, puffing his chest out. Stay away from my family, Thorne, or You'll what? Silas asked calmly. Throw a tantrum? Stop it, I interrupted, stepping between them. I looked up at Julian. The contrast was painful. Julian, who claimed to love me, was bruising my arm. Silas, a stranger, had noticed I was dying in 5 minutes. "We are leaving," Julian commanded, reaching for me again. I took a step back out of his reach. "I am leaving. You can stay here and shout at the books." "Elara, get in the car," Julian warned. I looked at Silas. "Thank you for the book, Mr. Thorne." "Anytime, Elara," Silas said softly. I turned to Julian, my eyes cold. "He was just being kind, Julian. It's something you forgot how to be a long time ago." "Elara," Julian gasped, stunned by the rebuke in front of his rival. "Goodbye, Julian," I said. I turned and walked toward the exit. Silas fell into step beside me, opening the door. "Need a ride?" Silas asked as we stepped onto the sidewalk. "Yes," I said, not looking back at my husband. "Anywhere but here?" The ballroom was suffocating, filled with the scent of expensive lilac and the drone of shallow conversation. I stood at the top of the grand staircase, smoothing the fabric of my dress. It was black. Pitch black velvet that absorbed the light around it. In a room full of pastels and jewels, I looked like a shadow. I looked like a widow before the funeral had even begun. "Elara?" I looked down. Julian was at the bottom of the stairs, staring up at me. He held a champagne glass in a white-knuckled grip. I descended slowly, keeping my eyes locked on his. When I reached the bottom, he didn't offer me his arm. He just stared at the dress. "You're wearing black," he said, his voice tight. "It's a celebration, Elara. You look like you're going to a wake." "Maybe I am," I said softly. "Stop with the riddles," he snapped, leaning in close so the guests wouldn't hear. "And fix your face. You look cold." "I am cold, Julian." He opened his mouth to argue, but his eyes darted over my shoulder. I turned. Serafina was standing by the champagne tower. She was wearing a shimmering silver gown that clung to every curve, looking like a prize waiting to be claimed. She looked nervous, twisting a ring on her finger, waiting for him to acknowledge her. "I didn't invite her," Julian whispered hurriedly, panic rising in his voice. "She just showed up." I told her to leave, but she said, "Julian," I interrupted. "I swear, Elara, I'll have security remove her right now. Just don't cause a scene." "Why would I remove her?" I asked. He blinked. "What?" "She looks beautiful," I said, tilting my head. "And she's waiting for you." "I don't understand." He looked from me to her, completely lost. "You want me to kick her out, don't you?" "Scream at me. Tell me I'm a bastard." "No," I said, stepping closer to him. I reached out and straightened his body. My hands were cold against his neck. "I want you to go to her." "Elara, people are watching," he hissed. "Let them watch," I whispered. "Go ask her to dance." "She's been standing there for 20 minutes. "You're testing me," he said, narrowing his eyes. "This is a trap." "It's not a trap, it's permission." I placed my hand on his chest and pushed him gently, just a nudge, toward her. "Go." He stumbled a step, then looked back at me. He was waiting for the punchline, for the explosion. When it didn't come, a strange mix of relief and guilt washed over his face. "I'll just tell her to leave," he muttered, walking away from me. That he didn't tell her to leave. I watched as he reached her. I saw Seraphine's face light up. I saw his hand slide onto her waist. The orchestra swelled, playing a waltz, and he swept her onto the floor. I stood alone near a marble pillar, watching my husband hold another woman. In my last life, I had run to the bathroom and vomited from heartbreak. Tonight, I just felt a dull, heavy ache. Pathetic, isn't it? I turned. Chloe and Marcus stood nearby, unaware I was listening. "She's just letting it happen," Chloe snickered behind her fan. "Look at her. Standing there like a statue while he parades his mistress around." "Julian finally grew a spine," Marcus laughed, swirling his drink. "Elara has always been a wet blanket. He deserves some fun." "I agree," I said. They both jumped, spinning around. Chloe turned bright red. "Elara, we didn't see you," Chloe stammered. "Obviously," I said, my voice dry. "We were just saying," Marcus started, trying to recover. "That Julian looks happy." I looked back at the dance floor. Julian was laughing at something Serafina whispered. "He did look happy. He looked light." "Yes, he does," I said. "He looks like a man who has forgotten he has a wife." "Elara, don't be bitter," Marcus said condescendingly. "It's just a dance." "I'm not bitter, Marcus. I'm observant." A sharp pain shot through my chest, a jagged, electrical spike that nearly made my knees buckle. I grabbed the pillar for support, my breath hitching. Not yet, I begged my heart. Just hold on for one more hour. Are you okay? Chloe asked, stepping back as if my pain were contagious. I'm fine, I lied, straightening my posture through the agony. I just need to make a toast. A toast? Marcus raised an eyebrow. Yes, I said, staring at Julian and Seraphina spinning in the center of the room. I think it's time I said what everyone else is thinking. I walked away from them, moving toward the stage. Every step was a battle against gravity. My heart fluttered like a dying bird in a cage. Goodbye, Julian, I thought as I climbed the steps to the microphone. I hope she was worth it. The screech of the microphone feedback sliced through the room like a knife. The orchestra halted mid-note. The laughter died instantly. A few hundred heads turned toward the stage, their eyes finding me standing there in my black velvet gown. I tapped the microphone twice. Thump, thump, thump. Excuse me, I said, my voice echoing through the massive hall. I'd like to say a few words. Julian, who was still on the dance floor with Seraphina, froze. His face went chalk white. He released Seraphine's waist as if she burned him and took a frantic step toward the stage. Elara, he hissed, loud enough for the front row to hear. Get down. Don't do this. It's all right, Julian, I said into the mic, my voice steady and unnervingly calm. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to celebrate. I scanned the crowd. I saw Marcus's jaw drop. I saw Lady Beatrice covering her mouth with a napkin. I saw Seraphina standing alone on the dance floor, looking like a deer caught in headlights. I raised my champagne glass. My hand didn't tremble. Tonight is a special night, I continued, smiling softly. We often talk about duty, about reputation, about business. But we rarely talk about love, real, undeniable love. Julian was pushing through the crowd now, his eyes wide with panic. Elara put the mic down. You're drunk. I am perfectly sober, my love, I said, looking directly at him, and I have finally opened my eyes. I turned my gaze to Seraphina. She flinched, expecting an insult. Seraphina, I said gently. She blinked, tears of humiliation welling in her eyes. Mrs. Vance, no, please. Don't apologize, I interrupted. You look beautiful tonight. You make him smile in a way I haven't been able to in years. That is a gift. The room was so quiet I could hear the air conditioning humming. For a long time, I thought love meant holding on. I addressed the crowd again. I thought if I gripped tight enough, I could fix what was broken, but I was wrong. Love is about letting go. I looked back at Julian. He had reached the edge of the stage, breathless. Elara, stop, he begged, his voice cracking. Everyone is watching. Come home. I am already home, Julian, just not with you. I took a deep breath. The pain in my chest flared, hot and sharp, but I pushed it down. To my husband, Julian, and his new happiness, I announced, raising the glass higher. I bless you both, truly. May you find the peace I cannot give you. May you love each other without guilt, without shadows, and without me standing in your way. I drank the champagne in one swallow. To the happy couple. I whispered. Silence. No one drank, no one moved. The shame in the room was palpable, thick enough to choke on. I placed the empty glass on the podium and walked down the stairs. The crowd parted for me like the Red Sea, their eyes wide with pity and shock. I walked straight to the table where Julian had been sitting. He scrambled after me. Elara, what was that? What the hell was that? I didn't answer. I reached for my left hand. I twisted the gold band that had been on my finger for 5 years. It slid off easily. My fingers had gotten so thin lately. I placed the ring on the white tablecloth. It made a soft clink against the porcelain plate. Elara, Julian whispered, staring at the ring. Pick it up. No, I said. He grabbed my arm, his grip desperate. You can't do this here. You can't just resign from a marriage in the middle of a gala. I'm not resigning, Julian. I'm setting you free. I looked at Seraphina, who had walked over, trembling. He's yours, I told her, my voice devoid of malice. Take care of him. He needs a lot of attention. Elara, please, Julian said, tears forming in his eyes. He didn't understand why, but he was crying. Let's go home. We'll talk about this. There is nothing left to talk about. I gently peeled his fingers off my arm. His skin was warm. Mine was ice cold. I'm tired, Julian. I'm going to sleep. I'll drive you, he insisted, reaching for me again. I stepped back. No, you stay, finish your dance. I turned my back on him. Elara! He screamed. I kept walking. I walked past the staring guests, past the shocked waiters, and out the heavy double doors. The cool night air hit my face, and I inhaled deeply, tasting the freedom. I checked my watch. My life as Mrs. Vance ended at 9:02 p.m. Now I just had to survive the rest of the night. The heavy oak doors of the hotel swung shut behind me, muting the chaos of the gala. The night air was sharp, smelling of rain and exhaust. I didn't stop to shiver. I walked straight to the black sedan idling at the curb. The window rolled down. Silas looked out, his face grim. "Get in," he said. I opened the door and slid into the passenger seat. The leather was cool against my bare arms. As soon as the door clicked shut, the world went silent. "Did anyone see you?" I asked, leaning my head back against the headrest. "No, I've been parked here for an hour," Silas replied, shifting the car into gear. "Did you do it?" "I did. And I think I broke him," I whispered, closing my eyes. "Just drive, Silas, please." The car pulled away from the curb, merging into the city traffic. I watched the lights blur past gold, red, white. They looked like streaks of paint on a canvas I was leaving behind. "You look terrible," Silas said bluntly, glancing at me. "Thank you," I murmured. "Flattery will get you everywhere." "I'm serious, Elara. You're shaking." "It's just the adrenaline leaving my body. I'll be fine." But I wasn't fine. A tickle started in the back of my throat, a familiar metallic itch. I tried to suppress it, swallowing hard, but it clawed its way up. I coughed. Once. Twice. Then it took over, a violent spasm that bent me double. "Elara." Silas swerved slightly, slowing the car. "Do you need a hospital?" "No," I wheezed, pressing my handkerchief to my mouth. "Keep driving." The fit lasted for another agonizing minute. When it finally subsided, I slumped back, gasping for air. I pulled the white cloth away from my lips. Even in the dim light of the dashboard, the stain was unmistakable. Dark, crimson blood. Silas saw it. His knuckles turned white on the steering wheel. "It's getting faster," he said, his voice tight. "I know," I rasped, folding the handkerchief to hide the evidence. "That's why we need to hurry." We drove in silence for 2 hours. The city lights faded into the darkness of the countryside, and eventually the smell of pine was replaced by the salt of the ocean. "We're here," Silas announced softly. The car crunched over gravel. I opened my eyes. The cottage was small, perched on a cliff overlooking the churning sea. It was isolated, dark, and perfect. Silas killed the engine. I stocked the fridge yesterday. The firewood is stacked inside. "But Elara, are you sure you want to be alone out here?" "If something happens." "If something happens, it happens," I said, unbuckling my seatbelt. "I don't want doctors. I don't want machines. I just want to hear the waves." He got out and grabbed my bag from the trunk. I followed him to the front door, my legs feeling like lead. He unlocked it and set the bag inside. "Here," he said, handing me the key. He looked at me with a sadness that mirrored my own. "You are a brave woman, Elara Vance." "Just Elara," I corrected him. "Vance is a name I left on a table back in the city." My purse vibrated violently against my hip. I pulled out my phone. The screen lit up the dark porch. "Incoming call. Husband." It buzzed again. "And again, he's persistent," Silas noted. "He's panicked," I said. "He's realized the bird has flown the cage. Are you going to answer?" I looked at the name flashing on the screen. For years, I had waited by the phone for him to call. I had prayed for this notification. Now it just looked like a nuisance. "No," I said. I pressed the power button and held it down. The screen went black. The buzzing stopped. "Goodbye, Julian," I whispered to the device. "I'll check on you in 2 days," Silas said, stepping back toward his car. "Try to rest." "I will," I said. "I have the rest of my life to rest." I stepped inside and closed the door. I turned the lock. Click. Finally, silence. Silas placed the tablet on the rustic wooden table. Outside, the ocean roared, but inside the cottage, the silence was heavy. "You don't have to watch this," Silas said, his hand hovering over the screen. "I can just tell you what happened." "No," I said, my voice raspy. "I need to see it. I need to know he understands." I pressed play. The grain of the security footage from the manor's foyer flickered to life. The timestamp was from the night of the gala, barely an hour after I had left. On the screen, the front door flew open. Julian stormed in, his tuxedo jacket gone, his tie hanging loose. Serafina trailed behind him, looking annoyed. Elara! Julian's voice distorted through the tablet speakers, but the panic was unmistakable. Elara, come out here, this joke is over. Julian, please, Serafina whined, grabbing his arm. She's obviously doing this for attention. Just let her have her tantrum. Shut up. Julian snapped, shaking her off. He turned to Martha, who was standing by the stairs, her hands clasped tightly. Where is she? Where is my wife? She's gone, sir, Martha said. Her voice was trembling, but she stood her ground. She left hours ago. Left to where? Julian ran a hand through his hair, pacing in a tight circle. Did she go to her mother's? Did she check into a hotel? I don't know, sir. She took her things. Her things? On the screen, Julian sprinted up the stairs. The camera angle switched to the hallway camera outside our bedroom. He kicked the door open. Elara, he shouted again. I watched as he ran into the walk-in closet. He emerged seconds later, his face pale. Empty, he muttered, sounding breathless. All of it. Her coats, her shoes, it's all gone. He walked over to the knitstand. I leaned closer to the tablet. This was the moment. I had left the envelope right there under the lamp. He picked it up. He ripped it open. What is this? He whispered. What did you find? Serafina asked, leaning in the doorway. Is it a ransom note? It's a medical report, Julian said. He sank onto the edge of the bed, his eyes scanning the paper. Dr. Uri's heart failure terminal. The paper shook in his hands. Terminal? He choked out. No, that's wrong. She's 26. She's fine. She was just quiet. Julian, it's probably fake, Serafina scoffed, walking into the room. She placed a hand on his shoulder. Don't you see? She's manipulating you. She wants you to feel guilty so you'll dump me. Julian didn't move for a second, then slowly he looked up at her. The look on his face made even me, watching from a screen miles away, shiver. It was pure, unadulterated hatred. Fake? He whispered. Yes, she blesses us at the gala and then leaves a death note? It's theatrical, Julian. It's pathetic. Julian stood up so fast the chair toppled over. Get out, he said. What? Serafina blinked. I said get out. Julian roared. His voice cracked, a sound of raw agony. My wife is dying. She's dying and I was dancing with you. Julian, you love me. Serafina cried, reaching for him. I don't even know you. He screamed, shoving her away. She was saying goodbye, don't you get it? She was saying goodbye and I didn't even listen. He grabbed a vase from the dresser, the blue one I bought on our honeymoon, and hurled it at the wall. It shattered, just like his composure. Get out of my house, he bellowed. Get out before I kill you. Serafina ran. She fled the room, sobbing. Julian didn't chase her. He collapsed onto the floor, clutching the medical report to his chest. He curled into a ball right there on the carpet where I used to sit and wait for him. Elara, he sobbed into the empty room. Elara, please. Pick up the phone, please. I watched him weep. I watched the man who had ignored me for 3 years finally break. Turn it off, I whispered to Silas. Silas tapped the screen. The room went black. He called the police 5 minutes later, Silas said softly. He has private investigators sweeping the city. He's offering $1 million for information on your location. He won't find me, I said, leaning back and closing my eyes. He's looking for Elara Vance. She doesn't exist anymore. The ocean breeze was cold, but I couldn't feel it. I sat in the wooden rocking chair on the porch, a thick wool blanket wrapped tight around my shoulders. My breath came in shallow, rattling gasps. It had been 3 weeks since I left the city. 3 weeks of peace. 3 weeks of silence. The sound of tires crunching on gravel shattered that silence. I didn't turn my head. I didn't have the strength to. I just stared at the gray horizon where the water met the sky. Elara. The voice was ragged, broken. It sounded like a man who hadn't used his voice for anything but screaming in days. Footsteps pounded against the wooden stairs. Then he was there. Julian. He fell to his knees beside my chair, gripping the armrest as if it were the only thing keeping him upright. I turned my eyes slowly to look at him. He was unrecognizable. His designer suit was wrinkled and stained. His face, usually clean-shaven and sharp, was covered in a thick, patchy beard. His eyes were bloodshot, sunken into dark hollows of purple skin. He looked like a ghost haunting the living. "I found you," he choked out, burying his face in the blanket covering my knees. "Oh God, Elara, I found you." "Hello, Julian," I whispered. My voice was thin, like paper tearing. He lifted his head, his hands trembling as he reached out to touch my cheek. He pulled back at the last second, afraid he might break me. "Why?" he sobbed, tears streaming freely down his face. "Why did you run? I've been looking everywhere. I hired everyone. I haven't slept. I haven't eaten." "I know," I said softly. "You look terrible." "I don't care how I look. I care about you." He scrambled closer, his desperation radiating off him like heat. "I saw the report, Elara. Dr. Aris, he said it's bad, but he's wrong. We can fix this. I have a jet waiting at the airfield. There's a specialist in Switzerland. I'll pay them anything. I'll buy the hospital if I have to." "Julian." "No, don't say no." He grabbed my cold hand, pressing it to his feverish forehead. "I can save you. I promise. I'll make it right. I tore up the divorce papers. I burned them. You're my wife. You're Mrs. Vance." "I'm just Elara now," I said, gently trying to pull my hand away, but he held on tight. "And Serafina is gone," he rushed on, the words tumbling out of his mouth. "I threw her out that night. I told her I never wanted to see her again. She means nothing. She was a mistake. A stupid, arrogant mistake." I looked at him, this powerful man who thought he could control everything, even death. "She wasn't a mistake, Julian," I said, feeling a wave of exhaustion wash over me. "She was a choice. You chose her every day for 3 years. I was blind." He cried. "I didn't know what I had until you walked away on that stage. When you blessed us, it killed me, Elara. It ripped my heart out." "Good," I whispered. He froze, staring at me. "What?" "It means you finally have a heart to break." The screen door creaked open behind us. Silas stepped out. He was calm, holding a glass of water, but his eyes were hard as flint when they landed on Julian. "You're upsetting her," Silas said, his voice low and dangerous. "Step back, Vance." Julian's head snapped up. The old anger flickered in his eyes for a second, but it was weak, drowned out by his grief. "You helped her hide. You kept her from me." "I kept her safe," Silas retorted, stepping between us. "She came here to die in peace, not to listen to your guilty conscience." "I am her husband," Julian shouted, trying to stand but stumbling. "Silas, stop," I said. It took all my energy to speak loud enough for them to hear. Silas stopped immediately, looking down at me with concern. "Elara, you need rest. His shouting is making your heart rate spike." "I know," I said. I looked back at Julian. He was on his knees again, weeping silently now. "Julian," I said. He looked up, hope fragile in his eyes. "You want me to forgive you," I stated. "Yes, please. I love you, Elara. I realized it too late, but I love you more than anything." I smiled, and it was the saddest smile I had ever worn. "You don't love me, Julian," I whispered, leaning my head back against the chair. "You only love me because I'm leaving. You love the tragedy of me. You love the fact that you can't have me anymore." "That's not true," he sobbed. "It is," I said, closing my eyes. "If I were healthy, if I were staying, you would still be with her. My death is the only thing that made me valuable to you." "No." "It's okay," I said, my voice fading. "I don't hate you for it. I don't have the energy to love you anymore. It's too late for apologies, Julian. The show is over." "Here, I heated the soup again," Julian said, his voice terrifyingly gentle. He hovered over the sofa where I lay, holding a spoon like it was a peace offering. "Just one bite, Elara, please." I turned my head away, pressing my cheek against the rough fabric of the cushion. "I'm not hungry, Julian, I told you." "You have to eat to keep your strength up," he pleaded. The desperation in his tone was exhausting. It drained me more than the illness did. "The doctors are landing in an hour. You need to be ready." "Stop," I rasped. "Just stop. I'm trying to help." He cracked, setting the bowl down on the table with a rattle. "Why won't you let me help you? Why do you look at me like I'm a stranger?" I slowly pushed myself up to a sitting position. My lungs burned with the effort. I really looked at him. He was a shell of the man who used to strut through our home. He was broken. "Because you are a stranger, Julian," I said softly. The husband I knew died a long time ago. I buried him. He fell to his knees beside the sofa, grabbing my hand. I'm right here. I'm back. I swear I'm back. You are back, I whispered. You're just afraid of being alone. That's not true. I love you. I made a mistake with Serafina, but... Julian, I cut him off. My voice was weak, but it silenced him instantly. Do you want to know the truth? The real truth? He stared at me, his eyes wet. Yes, tell me. I didn't just leave because I was sick, I said, closing my eyes for a moment to gather my thoughts. I left because I already died loving you once. I wasn't going to do it again. He furrowed his brow. You died? In here, I said, pointing to my chest, in my heart. I spent 3 years dying by inches while you were out with her. I mourned us while you were buying her jewelry. By the time the doctor told me my heart was failing, it was a relief. My heart had been failing for years because of you. He recoiled as if I had slapped him. Elara, don't say that. And the worst part? I let out a dry, rattling laugh. You did it all for a lie. She loved me, Julian argued weakly, though his voice lacked conviction. She was there for me when I was stressed. Check your phone, I said. He blinked. What? Silas sent you a file 10 minutes ago. I told him to wait until you were broken enough to hear it. I told him to wait and told him to wait and told him to wait until you were broken enough to hear it. Julian pulled his phone from his pocket with trembling hands. He tapped the screen. A voice note popped up. He pressed play. Seraphine's voice filled the small cottage. It wasn't the sweet, breathy voice she used with him. It was sharp and mocking. God, Chloe, he's so pathetic, the recording played. He bought me the bracelet just like I said he would. He's so desperate to feel like a man. I just need to hang on for another 6 months until the divorce goes through. Once I get the settlement, I'm dropping his boring ass. He actually thinks I listen to his stories about the market? I'm literally shopping online while he talks. The recording ended with her cruel laughter. Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Julian dropped the phone. It hit the floor with a dull thud. He looked at his hands, then at me, his face crumpled. The arrogance, the denial, the hope, it all shattered. She said. He stammered, unable to form a sentence. She played you, Julian, I said, my voice void of pity. You threw away a diamond because you thought a shiny stone was worth more. And now you have neither. He let out a sound that wasn't quite a scream and wasn't quite a sob. He buried his face in my lap, his shoulders shaking violently. I'm so sorry, he wailed, his tears soaking through my blanket. Oh my God, Elara, what have I done? What have I done? I looked down at the top of his head. I felt a faint stir of sadness, but it was distant, like watching a storm on a different continent. You broke us, Julian, I whispered, not moving to comfort him. And now you have to live with the pieces. The sunset was bleeding through the window, painting the room in shades of dying orange and bruised purple. At least I thought it was the sunset. It was getting harder to tell where the light ended and the darkness began. Elara, stay with me. Julian's voice cracked. He was squeezing my hand so hard it should have hurt, but I couldn't feel his fingers anymore. I couldn't feel my own fingers. I'm tired, Julian, I whispered. The words felt heavy on my tongue like stones. No, you can't be tired yet, he begged, leaning over me. His tears were dripping onto my face, hot wet tracks against my cooling skin. The specialist is landing in 20 minutes. The ambulance is on its way up the cliff road. Just hold on, please, Elara, fight. I fought for 3 years, I murmured, my eyes drifting shut. I'm done fighting. Open your eyes, he shouted, panic spiking in his voice. Look at me. Don't you dare close them. I forced my eyelids open. It took every ounce of strength I had left. Julian's face swam into view, a blurry collage of grief and terror. I'm looking, I breathed. I can fix this, he sobbed, pressing my hand to his lips. I'll build a hospital wing in your name. I'll donate everything. I'll change, Elara. I swear on my life I'll be the husband you deserved from the start. You can't bribe death, Julian, I said softly. And you can't buy back time. I don't accept that. He yelled at the ceiling as if bargaining with God. Take me instead. Take me. She's innocent. Stop screaming. Silas's voice cut through the room. It was calm, deep, and steady. I shifted my gaze past Julian. Silas was standing by the window, his silhouette dark against the fading light. He wasn't crying. He was standing guard, ensuring my transition was safe. "Silas," I whispered. He moved instantly, crossing the room to stand behind Julian. "I'm here, Elara." "Thank you," I said, "for the book, for the drive, for seeing me." "It was my honor," Silas said, his voice thick with emotion he was trying to hide. He placed a hand on Julian's shoulder. "Let her go, Vance. Stop making her hold on for you." "It's selfish." "I can't let her go." Julian shrugged him off violently. "She's my wife. She's my life." "I was never your life, Julian," I said, drawing his attention back to me. "I was just part of the furniture." "Don't say that," he wept, burying his face in the sheets. "I loved you. I always loved you. I was just stupid. I was blind." "It's okay," I said, and it really was. The anger I had carried for months was gone. The resentment, the jealousy, the pain, it had all evaporated. All that was left was a vast, quiet ocean. "Does it hurt?" Julian asked, lifting his head. His eyes were red, pleading for reassurance. "No," I lied. My chest felt like it was being crushed by a mountain, but the edges were going numb. "It feels light." "I'm so sorry," he whispered, stroking my hair. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I'm so sorry I hurt you. Please, Elara, forgive me. I need you to forgive me before you go." I looked at him. I saw the boy I had married, buried under layers of greed and ego. I saw the man who had destroyed me, now destroyed by his own actions. "I forgive you," I said. He let out a ragged breath of relief. "Thank you. Oh God, thank you." "But," I added, my voice growing fainter. He froze. "But what?" I summoned the last of my energy. I needed him to hear this. I needed this to be the thing that echoed in his empty house for the rest of his life. "Live, Julian," I whispered. "I will," he nodded frantically. "I'll live for you." "No," I corrected him. "Live for yourself. But live with the memory of what you lost. Every time you see a sunset, remember I'm not there to see it. Every time you succeed, remember you have no one to share it with. That is my blessing to you." He stared at me, horror dawning in his eyes as he realized the weight of my words. It wasn't a forgiveness. It was a sentence. "Elara, goodbye, Julian." My vision turned to gray static. The sound of the ocean outside grew louder, drowning out his sobbing. The pain in my chest spiked one last time, a sharp, final reminder of life, and then vanished completely. I felt my grip on his hand loosen. I felt the tether snap. "Elara, no, Elara." His voice sounded like it was coming from underwater, far away. Unimportant. I closed my eyes. There was no darkness, only a soft, welcoming light. I stepped into it, leaving the cold room, the broken husband, and the tragic life behind. I was finally free.